innovations and then visions have been quite crucial in developing mechanisms to address or to put up mitigation platforms for our activity, especially when we talk about the interreliance between humans, the people, and then the society. Civilization comes at a cost, and obviously you can't live without addressing such issues. Climate change, from human activity, you could talk about sand mining, among other issues, and then to the industry, and then the offsets of things like waste, from effluent to solid municipal waste, plastics, polythene, among others. So institutions have been quite crucial, and in these very episodes, we dealt with institutions, from MOOBS to the International University of East Africa, and then one of the most leading brains at Makerere University, that's Dr. Emmanuel Tewandeke, who gave us an insight into what exactly it means to deal with non-biodegradable waste. Over time, it becomes an issue. And obviously, because it cannot be broken down biologically by aerobic means, then it means we have to define modes of dealing with it. So, at the International University of East Africa, there was a development that basically brought in technology to recycle plastic waste. Although the magnitude could be little, but it's quite interesting how such innovations can build a platform for the entire country. So as we think of better means on investing into waste recycling, because the subsector is growing, the recycling subsector, from the people that shred the plastics for the provision to the bigger industries that do the recycling and then model other forms of utilities, and then to these students, and then the scientists that are driving the cause to the very last phase. So let's take a look at what happened at the International University of East Africa, and then the show will have to continue.
We are going to break this into small particles, whereby we are to use them in another process to help us come up with something more direct. So we've got to fix this into this. After putting them inside, we shall switch it on.
Not all plastic are recyclable. There is what they call the resin identification code, IRC code. These are when you look at the plastic bottle and you will see like a triangle there, triangle, and a number in between, like in the middle. So that number is to show you whether that plastic can be recycled or not. And we have different types of plastic. We have classified using their number, 1 to 7. Number 1, 2, those are the ones that are commonly recycled in Uganda using appropriate technology. The others can be recycled, but they may be very expensive for our investors who are involved in recycling.
It will be melted. During the melting process, it will pass here. But this machine, it makes bigger products. So after putting the flax here, flax are the particles that were crushed. After making them here, it will be melted, which will go here to the melting machine. There's a melting device inside here where it will melt it.
The pressure is too much on it. So we help put it here. We put it down here and inject it. We make sure it's in the middle.
Press it down. Press it down.
Wait, down a bit.
Press it down. Still. Yeah. Press it down.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. So so she's putting in the crushed plastics in it, and this one helps us. So when you're measuring, we use this. We measure according to the grams, and when you roll it, you find it very hard. You don't force, you stop it there. And then out of that, when we remove this,
there is worry for the food chain. Obviously, man and food are inseparable. But this comes of agriculture. You could talk about livestock farming to subsistence farming, where people look at growing food crops, basically, for home consumption. But then there is even the sale, the people that do commercial agriculture. But all this rotates around the chain of society. And then industrialization is in place. We are relying on mechanisms or mechanized agriculture to produce the biggest output that can feed the economy. Globally and obviously locally, East Africa, we deal with trade, trading of commodities such as maize to Kenya, Tanzania, among other countries, Rwanda still. So there's something interesting from the highest peak in the world, that's Everest, Mountain Everest actually, from the highest mountain down to the deepest trench, or rather trough, that's the Mariana Trench. We are dealing with microplastics, waste broken down into the smallest bits of composition. But all this gets down into the society, into the ecosystem, from the waters and then right into the land or onto the land, among other elements of the earth. So eventually we are looking at the ecosystem and then the people, the animals, the organisms that rely on it consuming these microplastics. Obviously, it gets back to the humans. If you buy fish, you may not think about this, especially when it's from the market. But when you sit down to watch something that relays message, that portrays how fish lives through the waters, feeding on particular organisms over time, you will have to realize this. The goats and then the cows, you could talk about the livestock. They feed off the pasture, but then the pasture is still contaminated with the polythene, with the plastic material. So it causes great worry for the agriculture industry and obviously human health. So let's take a look at this explainer and then understand very well what it really means and the desire, the need to deal with managing waste in the best possible means.
And this comes in that our waste handling is still a challenge, that you have the plastics mixed with the organics. You have the plastics mixed with toxic or sometimes biologically contaminated materials, such that when it comes to reuse, it may actually turn out to be a problem.
When the temperature is high, the rate of the microbial activities in the waste become high. So that breakdown release a lot of leachate down there in the soil. And if that leachate is not contained by a barrier, a physical barrier there, it can percolate down the soil and pollute the underground water, the water that we take. Assuming all of them were taken to the landfill, you would see landfills everywhere. Now, the place for landfills, the place that has been abandoned, and landfilling activity was operating there. That place became a dead place. You cannot grow anything there.
It is a call for all of us to think about the way we relate with the environment. I remember when I was growing up, for us everything was made out of soil, clay. We didn't have fridges, so we would have our pot, and when the pot is disposed of, it is broken down, it is ground again, recycled, and pots will be made again out of this. Even eating, we used to eat from clay-made plates. We would cook in clay-made utensils. So everything would be recycled, and recycling plastics is not a new thing. It is not a new invention.
The limit to recycling and the 40% excise duty on every kilogram per sack of plastics, there is a shortfall to the business that avails recyclable material for the growing manufacturing industry.
Kati oyo gwe tugamba gwe tuyita HD obulaaka obuveera bwa bulaaka bo tetumanyi bbeeyi yaabo kuba tuludde okubutunda kati ennaku zino kuba luli baali batugirako nga batugirako nusu 2 ng'abalonzi tubagulako nusu 180.
Ebiseera ebisinga emuwendo gukyukakyuka naye ng'ate eri balaga fixed price etya nti ekutiya baba bazigula nusu 8 ku factory ng'oyinza otwalayo ekutiya fiso namba ne batuuka ne bakutema kye bayita 60 oba 40%. Naye nga gavumenti emanyi nti bakugula meka 8 kati tebereza 40% kitegeeza ku ttani emu ogenda sigazaako 6 luba lukyali 8 kitegeeze ne baba bakoze eki omusuubuzi baba bamuyingiddemu.
Once you recycle, the plastic sometimes becomes weaker. Yeah, that can be weaker. That recycling it a number of times will of course result into holes. Or when it comes to packaging containers, it's the perception the end user is going to have on the material. Once you have a container that you're going to use for food stuff and has been scratched a number of times, you wouldn't want to take that kind of beverage or food that is present in that container.
And more to this is the worry over the impact of landfills and the greenhouse gases born.
Landfill is one of the ways of treating or like disposing solid waste. The type of waste taken there can be plastic bags and other solid waste. But now the challenge is is always with this landfill we are talking about.
Plastic in the environment is a challenge, but also burning it may actually cause more harm, because as you burn it, you're going to produce, of course, carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, but also you're going to produce this black smoke with a lot of particulate matter. But in some cases, this plastic contains some toxins that you burn it, and those who are in the neighborhood end up inhaling some of these toxic gases that are coming from the burning.
In the landfill, there are gases there. For example, methane gas. It forms 66% of the gas, followed by carbon dioxide is 33%. So other gases are also there, like hydrogen sulfide.
Incineration and recycling are among the top priorities for waste management, although with a similar contribution to greenhouse gas emissions.
Depends very much on the type of plastic. In most cases, there are some plastic, for example, plastic that are used for mineral water or packaging for foods, that sometimes reuse of this, if they're not handled properly, is not appropriate. That the handling of some of this plastic is not hygienic for them to be reused. And in most cases, you find that the value or the use of the original plastic, what we can say the virgin plastic, once it has been used, when it comes to the reuse, doesn't have that value it initially had. And this comes in that our waste handling is still a challenge.
However, there are key issues for the success of the two. Recycling, for instance.
That you have the plastics mixed with the organics. You have the plastics mixed with toxic or sometimes biologically contaminated materials, such that when it comes to reuse, it may actually turn out to be a problem.
You know, in Uganda, those incinerations that you see, they are not even standard. But we call it now incinerator because it is similar to the standard one. So the problem of using this substandard one is that it does not break down certain elements of the waste, and the gas released from the incinerator still moves up to the atmosphere, joining the other dangerous gases and causing the same problem.
The much worry is to do with them breaking down to form what are known as the microplastic that we talked about. And once these ones enter into the environment, when there is rainfall, this can find their way into water bodies, and these can actually have a bigger impact can find their way into the food chain, because fish, as fish is feeding, they can feed on these small particles of plastics, and once they're ingested, then they can cause harm to different systems.
Now, as the show comes to the close, I really appreciate taking the time to reach out to the community, the people. East Africa is quite broad, and then the world globally is dealing with issues that we talk about daily. The reliance on different things in the ecosystem, from the people that produce furniture, to the people that package the food, and then to the people that do the consumption, that pay something off the debit or credit cards to buy some products. So it's a chain, and it rotates over time. And the distress that we've talked about today generally deals with waste management. The dilemma, recycling. Is there a limit to recycling? Yes, of course. But then devising the best means to carry it out, and then to deal with the large chunks of waste in society, from the landfills to the undocumented disposal sites, to every single means of disposal. The incineration, you could talk about composting, among other things. And then there is the utility of the gases that come off, let's say, the landfills, the methane. They could be used in creating biogas. But these are avenues that we need to take cautions for, especially if we want to get the best out of these. Upscaling, for instance. The people that are in the arts industry, they take the initiative to create those beauties that we use for decoration, that we use in the game parks, rather the rest parks. You could talk about the different areas where you go to spend a few minutes refreshing. The beauty that comes of it is basically utilizing the waste, the plastic, and other disposal elements, putting them into use, and then saving the ecosystem still, the environment. So interrelating with it is quite important. And how to do that is superficially crucial. So as we get to the end of this conversation, I take the opportunity to say thank you to the whole team. So from me and the team, we say thank you so much. And this obviously is Smart 24 TV. We drive the business, but obviously we can't drive it without letting you know exactly how to go about these other elements of interrelation with society. The ecosystem is quite crucial. So until next week, let's link up. I'm Ivan Tivenkana.